Just want to test. Can you all hear me? Okay,
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we can hear you.
great.
And we are going to get started exactly at 3 o'clock. I'm going to do a very brief framing, and then I'm going to kick it over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone. We are going to get started. It is 3 o'clock, and I want to officially welcome you to our first Ward 5 monthly public safety call. And while this is the first of these types of meetings in this new format, it is certainly not the first of our efforts to address the rising violence across the city, but specifically in Ward 5. I am Councilmember Zachary Parker, and I have the privilege of representing the residents of Ward 5. The goal of this meeting is simple. It is to coordinate it across our public safety apparatus and to share information. We are also hoping to answer questions that members of the public have to build awareness and ultimately to increase safety. Tonight, or this afternoon rather, we will be joined by our Deputy Mayor, Lindsay Appiah, as well as the 5D Commander Altieri, 4D Commander Lavenhouse. Unfortunately, our 3D Commander was unable to join us because he's on travel, but we will be joined by Captain Moore from 3D. We will also hear from our violence interruption teams later in the call. Cody Wynn from our Cure the Streets team that operates in parts of Ivy City and Trinidad, as well as William Shelton of the Ward 5 Violence Prevention Network that operates in various parts of the ward from Brooklyn Manor to Saratoga to Taft. The agenda is on the screen. Because the Deputy Mayor has another obligation, we're gonna hear from her first, and then we're going to hear from our MPD partners. Just a few housekeeping rules, and then I'm gonna turn it over to our Deputy Mayor. My team is navigating the chat. We encourage you to use the chat to lift up questions, as well as you can use the Q&A feature here on Zoom to lift up questions. Oliver on our team will read those questions aloud and have different members here share a response. We are also broadcasting this meeting on our social media pages, and so we are also collecting questions there. We will likely not get to all of the questions, but as always, we are committed to sharing responses through our Ward 5 weekly newsletter. In the chat, we will be providing you information of how to get in touch with my team, how to get in touch with different members here on the call, as well as ways you can sign up for that newsletter. If we don't get to your question, we promise that we will follow up in writing to try our best to answer it. So with that, welcome again. The goal of our time today is to coordinate across our public safety apparatus, to answer your questions, and to share about the many efforts underway to address rising violence across the district. Last thing I would say before turning over to the Deputy Mayor, one, I want to thank everybody that is joining. It is not lost on me or my team how busy everyone on this call is, namely in addressing public safety in the district. But we think it's really important for us to work hand in hand with the community and to keep you abreast of the many efforts underway to address rising violence. And so with that, I want to first ask Deputy Mayor Lindsay Appiah to share. And if time permits, we will then allow for 1 or 2 questions. Oliver, again, on my team will lift up those questions. And we know that the deputy mayor has to go because of another application. But really appreciate her partnership and for her participation in today's meeting. So Deputy Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, council member, and thank you for having me. I said to the council member, I'm triple booked, but it is important for us to be here together in this space and for you all to see that we do work together, which is important. And I know that for all that you may see or hear, we all play a role in the system. And so like that may look however it is, but ultimately we all have the same goal of making sure that all of our residents across the city, and particularly Ward 5 today, are safe and have the resources they need for that to be real. And so I am the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, and certainly lead the cluster of agencies. You see some of them here, MPD, some of our violence interrupters from WANDS, and our partners in CURE, which are one piece, but it's always important that you hear from me. And I know something that's very important to your council member is that we actually are invested in holistic, whole of government responses, because I come from a public health background, and prevention is kind of at the heart of what I believe in, that we want to prevent crime. And a lot of that looks like a lot of different things. 2 things that I'll highlight, because really my role is to make sure that we're coordinating, yes, within the cluster, in those who are sort of seen as traditional kind of public safety space, which includes our violence interrupters, but also across cluster. That's the role of the deputy mayor's office, because particularly when it comes to the host of challenges you're seeing, our partners in health and human services and education and operations and infrastructure, it all has to be working together for us to really have the type of holistic impact that we want to have. And so there's been some movement of programs. Safe Passages is one that we recently took over. And the reason for that is not about, people often, I think of public safety and justice in a punitive sense, and that really isn't what it is. We're working in government to have alignment in spaces that will allow us to communicate in a way that gets us the type of outcomes we want. We have to coordinate. And so Safe Passages moving into PSJ, the goal is for us to really have a continuum where everybody from in what we call our credible contact continuum is able to communicate in a real-time way, in an easy way where possible, so that we're able to make the types of adjustments that allow us to get safety for our young people. We believe that school is still the safest place for our kids, and that for long-term outcomes to be positive, they need to be educated. So we got to get them there, and we need to create all the pathways to get them there. And so certainly having caring adults along the way that not only provide like the sort of physical presence that make kids feel safer, they're also eyes and ears to things happening in community, so we can start to communicate and prevent some of the violent incidents we're seeing with our young people, which is really important to us. And so in Ward 5, our Safe Passage schools are McKinley, the middle school, McKinley. Yes, I see some of your chats, of course, but McKinley Tech and McKinley Middle School, Noma Station, Dunbar, of course, and there are 2 other ones that I'm forgetting, but you can find it all on the Safe Passage website. And so that you all know too, I'm sorry, KIPP. How could I forget KIPP? We also have weekly meetings with the leadership and the security at Union Market, because we know that there's a lot going on in that space, so we're coordinated there. The other piece, and you'll hear us beat this drum, is policy. We have to have good policies. One of the things the mayor 2 days ago announced that we're going to be sending down legislation that addresses a host of things. It's important that our law enforcement has the tools that they need to safely, constitutionally police, but we also have to be fluid enough to address things that we're seeing. And one of the things, there's a number of provisions, and we'll share, everything's up at saferstrongerdc.gov. And you can find one-pagers on all legislation and things, a lot of things, public safety, including this piece of legislation, which is addressing crime trends now, Act Now, which we need to do with urgency, is open air drug markets. I've been across the city and I hear more about loitering, which, we can't just do anti-loitering laws. They're not constitutional, right? Like, we're not going to do that. And so what we're proposing is an anti-loitering law addressing the open air drug markets. We want it, everything isn't about criminalizing or arresting. We know that there's the need for treatment, right? But to get us there, it takes time. You'll hear that from DBH and otherwise, that getting people to the place where they're ready to accept treatment is a process that requires a lot of continuous outreach. But in the meantime, we also hear residents, it's not safe for others, for there to be some spaces where people are sitting and using and selling drugs, and we all know it. And I know that's true in Ward 5. I know it's a concern for you all. And so what we're trying to do is create tools that MPD has to interrupt activity. It's not about the arresting of people, because I know I see Commander Altieri on here. We have spoken and, you know, had residents work together with him and his drug suppression individuals to try and address the drug activity. And so we want to have tools. I see a lot going on, a lot here about Petite Scholars. And I want you to know this, that Director Porter, who's from OVSJG, who's one of my directors, also is a Petite Scholars parent. And she and Director Hines, right, also Petite Scholars. So some of the, first of all, let me say how deeply sorry I am that happened, because it's traumatizing for you as parents who are invested in our city and want to, and your primary responsibility is the safety of your children, right? And so we care about that deeply. And so there's a few things being done, and I'll just say that, right? So Dr. Bazron, who is the head of DBH, and her team have been involved, because we want to make sure first that to do everything we can to offer supports for the trauma for both staff and your children. And so there's acute trauma services being offered to Petite Scholars. And then on the sort of longer term side, partnering with Director Porter, who heads the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants, with some of their providers to give ongoing trauma support. DBH tends to be with school-based interventions, a more acute intervention, but we want to make sure people have support ongoing. Commander Altieri is on here and can speak about the MPD side of the house, which obviously there is that side, so I won't do that, but I wanted you to hear that. And you did see, obviously, Councilmember Henderson say, one of the tools that is requested of the U.S. Attorney's Office is, if the court, we don't control the court, right? We can't control whether or not a court chooses to securely hold. Certainly USAO can ask for that. But another piece that can be put in regard is a stay away from the area, giving MPD another tool that if the assailant is seen in that area, they can then pick that individual up. So those are some of, I wanted to try and answer some of those questions. So yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I'm trying to get all these things in quickly.
I appreciate it. If maybe we have time for one question, and Oliver will raise that up. I will say to the many community members that are concerned about what happened with the teachers at Petite Scholars, we share in your frustration. I too empathize, and there's a lot of work. We know that is going to come up. Given that the deputy mayor has to leave, I will provide an update after she gets off. I've been in constant communication with the Petite Scholars team as well as government agencies, and I'm prepared to give a full update on that. So, but Oliver, if you can, while we have the deputy mayor, ask a question and maybe we can get an answer in before she has to jump.
Yeah, sure. So one of the questions was, the new proposed legislation for drug-free zones doesn't seem to address the underlying causes of drug use and poverty and hopelessness. It just seems to criminalize that addiction. Where's the work being done today?
Sure. So there's a lot of spaces that we're doing work. One of the things that you heard me talk about is the work of DBH, right? And so I actually just came over here from the 6th district, where we were having an appreciation lunch for some of our multi-agency public safety task force partners who are across cluster DBH, fire EMS, not on the fire prevention side, but on they do a lot of behavioral intervention, things, Narcan distribution, education, or otherwise, who have been working for about a year together, doing walks on Wednesday, Thursday to go to the areas to help support outreach, DPW, MPD, of course. Because what you'll hear from DBH, who's also a part of that, is like a lot of this is the ongoing engagement of individuals to get them to the place where they're ready to accept treatment, right? We all know, I could sit here very quickly and say, you know, people talk about root causes a lot. That's complicated. Poverty, right? Like, we work a lot on second chance employment opportunities through DOES with our public works agencies like DPW and DDOT. That's part of it. Or for me, in our Office of Neighborhood Safety Engagement, the Pathways program, right? Like trying to get at some of the issues, housing insecurity. You hear about that across. The mayor speaks frequently about the work being done to increase, you know, housing security. These are complex, deeply seated issues that we do have to address the acute, which means we do have to have accountability enforcement tools, but that doesn't mean while we're doing the long-term work of addressing sometimes hundreds of years of systemic inequity, that we are still also addressing acute, because you see parents here whose children and they are traumatized by what happened. And while we're maybe working long-term on mental health or otherwise, doesn't mean we don't have to actually have appropriated tools to also address what is criminal conduct, you know? So I would say that these are not either or, they are both and that have to be working at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would just say before the deputy mayor leaves, on safe passage, which I know is a key priority for groups like Brooklyn Village, we are actively in discussions around how can we expand the program? How can we get more support to areas in Ward 5? I want you to know that those for members of the public, for those conversations are ongoing, and I'm looking forward to working closely with the deputy mayor on that. Deputy Mayor Appiah, thank you for joining. Feel free to stick around.
Thank you, and I'm happy to come back other times. I'm sorry it's like a triple book day, but like I'm happy to continue the conversation. Yeah. Understood.
Thank you for joining us. I do want to provide a very brief update, and before transitioning to our MPD officers. As has been documented and is well known, there was a tragic incident involving a male individual who is suffering from mental illness. He is currently who attacked a teacher in front of children that attend Petite Scholars in the Bloomingdale community. This individual is well known to members of the community. He is also under arrest after being released from the hospital where he's under arrest. He will be arraigned in court, and it will be the determination of the courts whether or not he is prosecuted. What I can say in terms of updates on the prosecution side and what I will say in terms of support for Petite Scholars, I have reached out to U.S. Attorney Matt Graves, and I have expressed in the clearest and most sincere ways that I can that I fully expect and demand that this individual is held accountable for the harm that he's caused to these teachers, these young people in this entire community. I have also requested a stay away order from all Petite Scholar schools throughout Ward 5, and that request has been acknowledged. And the U.S. Attorney's Office has to go through their process. The U.S. Attorney's Office is not willing to discuss ongoing investigations with the council, but they did acknowledge they are aware of the case. And what I would say for those that are concerned, as I am, that I encourage you to reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office to express your concerns that this individual is held accountable. In terms of support for Petite Scholars, my team has been on site and in touch with leadership there. When this incident happened, I visited the scene and comforted at least one of the teachers who were there on site. Another was transported to the hospital. Since we've been working very closely with Dr. Bazaran from the Department of Behavioral Health to ensure that we can get counseling and support services for teachers and the children there. They were there on site today, providing those services. They will be there throughout the week. I think there is some process agreement that is needed for them to return on Friday. Parents need to sign off on that, but the expectation and hope is that they will continue their work Friday of this week as well. And that support is ongoing and will be provided ongoing. I know that there are a number of GoFundMe links that are not officially sponsored by Petite Scholars, but by the parent groups and parents in the community. We are also willing to share more information about that following today's meeting. And there are a host of other avenues that how we're trying to support that school community. We also know that members of the broader Bloomingdale community have been long impacted by this individual and are equally traumatized. And so we will be having discussions with community leaders, civic groups around ways that we can wrap our arms around this community. When this event happened on Monday, we had just wrapped a coordinating call with community representatives and MPD and NOMA BID and the ANC commissioners, thinking about how do we create a coordinated community network to combat the rise in a drug addiction and the like in the area. And so we will share much more information about that in our Friday newsletter. I know this is not satisfying because many of these components are still moving, but I can assure you again that I am doing everything I can to advocate that the individual is held accountable. The council does not have a say in that. The mayor's office does not have a say in that. It will be the determination of the U.S. attorney, Matt Graves, whether or not in his office, whether this individual is prosecuted, and ultimately it will be up to the judge whether or not he is held. And last thing I would just say, I have also requested a review of our FD12 policies and other matters related to individuals with mental illness that commit acts of violence to close very clear loopholes that exist within our system. And so the council will be conducting that review very soon. Councilmember Henderson, who is the chair of the Health Committee, has committed to doing that. And we will be continuing to keep the community abreast of the many moving pieces to this. If you have questions, you can please reach out to my office. I see the chat going, and I'm sure there are many more questions. MPD is here, and I believe our 3D captain is prepared to speak to some of the updates on their end. But I would just say, I imagine everyone is not going to be satisfied. There are also many other issues affecting the ward. And so if you want more information, we're happy to provide it. So with that, I'm gonna now shift gears to our MPD partners. And I believe next up we have our 4D captain, Captain Lavenhouse, that will provide a brief report about what is happening in 4D. As you may know, Ward 5 encompasses the 3rd Police District, the 4th Police District, and the 5th Police District. We are thrilled to have Commander Lavenhouse as one of our newer commanders and look forward to working with her productively in the months and the years to come. So with that, Commander Lavenhouse, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Definitely thank you for the invite. I'm actually going to have the captain again because I have a previous engagement, but the captain over the area is Captain James Chapman. He is here, so he's going to go ahead and give those stats. I wanted to make sure that I was close by, though, while I'm hopping on the other meetings to make sure, well, first introduce myself and to make sure that I hear any of the questions that are presented. So if you can go ahead to the next slide for us, please.
Okay, as you can see, within the last 30 days. We have had a decrease in our ADWs. Unfortunately, we've had a increase in robberies in that particular area, an increase of approximately 4, which is a significant increase number wise. We are in the burglaries. We are down tremendously in the burglaries in that particular section. Motor vehicle theft, it continues to be an issue with in that particular area. As most of you are aware, we are still having an impact of robberies or motor vehicle theft for Kias, Hondas, and most recently we've been seeing Toyota Camrys kind of pop up on that as well. Theft from autos, we have a little rise in that. Again, that's a crime of opportunity. We've been working pretty diligently with the citizens and through our outreach just to put the information out for citizens to put away your valuables, so to eliminate those crimes of opportunity. You can see theft. We just one theft increase over the last 30 days and compared to what it was previously. Next slide, please. Okay, and again here we with our robberies, they tend to be all over the place. We don't have a specific cluster of robberies. When we do get robberies, if we have multiple robberies, it'll be one individual, one particular situation where an individual may rob one location, move to the next location, rob it, and move to the next location and rob. But nothing concentrated where we can just say specifically, like, hey, let's target this one particular area. Over the we've had 3 carjackings, of which one of them was closed with an arrest. And also most of the crimes that we are seeing is happening in night hours. So out of the 8 crimes that that I just talked about, the 5 of those are happening at night. And again, like I previously mentioned, you can see the auto thefts or motor vehicle thefts are going to be targeting the Camrys, the Hondas, and the Kias. Our busy day tends to be on Fridays.
Sorry to cap, just in real time, someone in the chat is asking, are these residential or commercial robberies?
No, these
None
are
of those 8 were.
none of the 8 were commercial.
Got it. Thank you.
And Friday appears to be our busy day in terms of the motor vehicle thefts, and it's going to be those are taking place in the daytime and both in the evening. Out of the motor vehicle thefts, we had 1 closure with a robbery, closure with an arrest. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so over the next few days and within the last week and over the next few days, we are have a number of community engagement opportunities that we have. We have as you can see, we have a Spookyville haunted alley coming up, in which we will have a opportunity for both the youth and adults in that area to come and visit this particular alley. We'll decorate it, get it all tricked out in Halloween and scary things, and provide a safe environment for kids to in the community to enjoy Halloween. We also have coming up on October 28th, the Fall Festival, and that's going to be held right here at the at 4th District, and we encouraging everybody to come out in the neighborhood to come and enjoy yourself here. So next slide. That's the last one.
Thank you. We are, before we turn to our 3D captain, Commander Lavenhouse, while we have you, we're gonna just lift up a couple of questions that folk have.
Sure.
So we have one question. My car was stolen again for the 2nd time in a year. I've done all of the measures to mitigate my risk, including taking a day off of work to have my car received the recommended safety updates and installing cameras outside of our condo. What is done to cut down not only on violent crime, but other property crime and the prevalent throughout the 5th district? And this is also the 4th district as well.
So I was just wondering with that question, do you have the car alarm on there? There's a few things that we can do. That's kind of a question I would like to follow up with offline, so we can get some of those pertinent factors to see exactly what's going on, and look into that situation, because if it is the second time, that's some intelligence or information from the community that we need, so that we can go ahead and work on that. So make sure you get my contact information so that we can get some more details about that.
Thank you for that, Commander. And while we have you, we're again going to drop in the chat contact information for everyone, and you can reach out to our 4D team. One thing that I know we hear a lot from neighbors about is just the time of travel in 4D. As you know, parts of Ward 5, Queens Chapel, Michigan Park, et cetera, is in 4D. 4D, like other police districts, spans many wards, and they would say it just takes too long to have response from officers. One request that has been made in the past is for a satellite office. And while I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you about that, can you just speak to response times and neighbors feeling as though parts of Ward 5 may not have as heightened presence as they would like?
Well, again, I think that's something that if there's a particular incident, when I hear that, oh, the police didn't come or the police took a long time, I like to hear those as the commander of the district, those specific incidents, so that I can go ahead. I have a way to track it, look in the system to see when the call for service was made, when the call taker assigned it or took the details of it and sent it over to the dispatchers. And then after the dispatcher gets it, when it was assigned to the officer, looking at our calls for service, and in those incidents, it's still response time has been under 10 minutes. With that, there's times where it's significantly less than that. So I'm not seeing that when I look at the calls for service and I get those specific examples. So again, that's something I would like to look at. But for every patrol service area within the 4th district, there are officers assigned to that particular area. So each area has officers that are assigned to that area and are handling calls for service for that particular area. Unless there are multiple things going on at one time or a significant incident, those officers really aren't pulled out of their area, unless we need multiple officers and it's a significant incident. And
then there's this question: what kind of resources does MPD utilize to track down car thieves? And you know, the robbery suppression unit, and I'm sure Commander Altieri will speak to that. But Commander Lavenhouse, what resources would you highlight from MPD targeting car thieves?
So we have license plate readers. As you know, the chief spoke about the increase of cameras that have been used or have been put up. So those are some of the resources that we use specifically in the 4th district. We have an amazing auto theft unit. I meet with them frequently. They get information from community members from where cars are being dumped or where we're seeing an increase of things down to glass in the street. So we know that there's theft from autos. These officers do an amazing job. They're whether in woods with cameras, trail cams, putting cameras up, doing going out afterwards and following up with community members for their cameras, getting ring camera footage. So these officers are doing excellent work in that space. So for us, we rely heavily in the 4th district on our auto theft unit.
Thank you for that. And I know you, Commander, you have to run as well. I just would also highlight the community walk that the Commander and I did in our North Michigan Park community alongside community leaders. Thank you for joining us. And again, we'll drop in the chat ways you can reach the Commander directly, as well as the team at the 4th Police District. in the chat. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from our 3rd district captain, Moore.
Hey, everybody. All right. Yeah, I'm filling in for the commander. He's out of town. Like the council member said, basically the 3rd district, we are packed with people and we're packed with wards too. We have wards 1, 2, 4, all within the 3rd district. So basically Ward 5 is within 2 PSAs, 306 and 308. 306 is basically the Bloomingdale neighborhood, which is just east of LaDroit. And then also when you go down in PSA 308, it's Truxton Circle and Hanover area there. So slide 1 there, of course, has the commander there, and he's put together those little QR codes. You can just scan those QR codes and it comes up with contact information with him to contact him. If you go to slide 2, it has the contact information for the command staff. And so the one in the middle, that's sector 2. That's what encompasses Ward 5, and that's me at the top. And then Lieutenant Romeo, he has PSA 308, which I said was Truxton Circle and Hanover area there. And then Lieutenant Fleming has Bloomingdale and LaDroit. And then Kathy Monahan, she has the U Street area. That's basically the Ward 1 there. And then the same thing, you can scan on those QR codes. Next slide. Those are the 3D stats as 3D wide, just basically showing you where the 3rd district is. Of course, crime stats are up all over the 3rd district, just like all over DC. We have a 24% increase. Citywide, it's around 28%. So we're running right there, just below, the citywide stats. Robberies, of course, are what's driving a lot of this. It's a lot of juveniles, young adults. They're armed with guns, sometimes rifles. They're using stolen autos. They'll steal an auto somewhere else and then come into the 3rd district and commit a bunch of robberies and use that vehicle until it gets hot, and then they'll dump it somewhere. Burglaries, we have burglaries of both businesses and residences. The T-Mobile on North Capitol there, the 1400 block, has been hit a couple times. There is a serial burglar who's been hitting DC and PG County. We have a warrant pending for that subject. We are actively looking for him as well. So if we find him, hopefully we can close a bunch of those T-Mobile cases. We have our business beat units that visit the businesses and give them advice, and they also make lots of theft lockups as well with these businesses. So it's a good resource. And then we also tell the citizens to lock their windows, not just their doors, but their windows, exterior motion lighting, alarms, as well as cameras. And of course, UMPD still has the camera rebate program, which, cameras are pretty cheap now. And, with that rebate, it pretty much covers the cost of most camera systems. And then the assault with a dangerous weapon, like I said, the weapon of choice a lot of times is guns. I mean, there's so many guns out there. Last weekend, we just got 21 guns just in the third district alone. So there's so many guns out there, and we're just getting a small fraction, but we're getting what we can. And unit block of O Street, we've gotten a couple guns there. It seems like folks will park their car there and walk on to North, Capitol. We'll look in the car and boom, we see a gun in the car. I don't know if they're visiting one of the stores there on North, Capitol, but that's been an issue there. Motor vehicle thefts, that's been a big issue. Of course, the Hyundai Kia Challenge with them punching the ignition there on the Hyundai in a Kia's certain years. Very easy to steal. That's been a high percentage. We offer the free wheel lock program here at 3D, or little kit or whatever. You can come and get one. We also have traffic overtime that we put on our major thoroughfares to try to prevent, jump-ins, right? When a delivery driver leaves a, car unsecure, when we have a traffic overtime unit, out there, hopefully that visibility, prevents that, as well as, the traffic overtime unit will stop the, delivery driver, somebody who's leaving it unsecure, and just warn them like, look, you're causing, cars to get stolen. And then with these stolen cars, they're doing the robberies and other crimes with them. So, next, specifically, we're going to Bloomingdale. This is, your PSA 306 on the eastern side here. Most of the dots you see there are to the west of Ward 5. It's Ward 1, basically, LaDroit, but we do have some issues. Some of the folks from LaDroit, they might come over and commit robberies in Bloomingdale area. And we also have a little crew in LaDroit. We believe there's currently a little internal rift with this crew, based on some shootings and things like that. So, so basically we have a Crime Patrol 306, and that Crime Patrol 306 stays in PSA 306. They don't leave unless there is a very exigent circumstance somewhere for them to leave. So that's more added attention to Bloomingdale and LaDroit. We want them to be able to get back to Kelly Miller dwellings as quickly as possible, but also more visibility in that area. So that's an added benefit. Also, we have a focused patrol area. It's designated in 2100 block of Flagler, as well as 100 block of V. So basically, a focused patrol car hits 4 different areas, and that's one of those areas. Basically, every 2 hours or so, they get out and they walk those two blocks. It's just for added, presence and to address any criminal activity that's afoot, in those blocks. So that's added visibility there in that area. All right, next slide. We're going to PSA 308. That's basically Truxton and Hanover down there. Again, robberies are driving the crime there, as well as thefts and motor vehicle thefts. 1400 block of North Capitol has always been a problem for years. Drug sales and drug use. We got a camera installed. It got installed on the northeast side, but it does capture the northwest side. So hopefully that will help be a deterrent as well as help solve crimes. I also designated that area as a hotspot to 1400 block of North Capitol, as well as unit blocks of O and P to include Mundo Verde. So basically the same kind of concept, like I said, up there in Bloomingdale with those 2 blocks. Basically every 2 hours, we try to get the officer back there, to address any issues and for visibility there. And also Mundo Verde has hired 2 officers as, basically they can work there, off duty. We call part-time officers. So that's for added security, to that school. We have a crime suppression team. They hit that area as well, quite frequently. And I've also sent a request to our Violent Crime Suppression Division. That's our citywide drug unit, for them to come to the area. Of course, everybody's vying for their attention, but they have made drug buys in that area, to make drug cases. So, I'm trying to get them back there as well. And basically, here I'll finish up here really quick. Next slide. Just basically, like I said, we've had 21 guns confiscated just this past weekend. That's one of our main focuses is recovering these illegal guns, taking them off the street. We are communicating quickly after a crime occurs through teams. So when we send a message out through teams, it goes to every district. And so all the officials and watch commanders can share the lookout, because, when somebody commits a crime in 3D, they're off to 4D or 5D or whatever next. So sharing that information is very valuable. We're aware of the, crew conflicts. Like I said, we have LaDroit. There's also Florida Park. Florida Park hasn't been quite as active. Knock on some wood here. Also, our business beats, they're very valuable. And we're doing our public safety walks every week. Lieutenant Romeo, just did one recently down in PSA 308, where, we're visiting mosques and synagogues and Jewish community centers, especially after the conflict in the Middle East there. And the, commander also has a cops and clergy. So basically it's a collaboration between 3D and various clergy for impactful community engagement and to try to reach folks to steer away from crime, right? And, more, positive aspects of life. So, and then the last thing I wanted to mention was, we have our haunted house here, haunted house of screams here at the third district, both on the 30th and 31st between 6:30 and 9 p.m. So it's free to the public. So the kids will love that. The commander built a huge kind of community in our parking garage. So it's amazing. The last thing I wanted to talk about, of course, there's tons of questions, I'm sure, but it's pretty much been touched on, but the assault in the 100 block of S Street with the, preschool teachers in front of the kids, it was terrible. We are aware of this subject. He normally hangs a lot north of Rhode Island Avenue in the Bloomingdale area, so we're very familiar with him there. We just arrested him earlier this month on the 3rd of October. But he's back out, so we charged him with 3 different charges, but he is back out, unfortunately. And then, of course, he commits this act here. So like the council member said, he is being treated now. When he is going to be released, we're going to be notified. We're going to pick him up, take him to Central Cell Block, and then he's going to be arraigned the next day in court. What the court does is up to the court, but, I emphasize, victim impact statements from all the citizens. If you get them and get them to your ANC commissioner, can, then get them to the U.S. attorney, and the more letters, the better. And like the council member said, we do want stayaways, like especially from those preschools. Heck, I'd like a bigger stay away, than that. But, getting stayaways is very hard these days. But if a judge issued a stay away, that'd be awesome. If we see him back out there and he violates a stay away, we can arrest him for contempt of court. So that is all I have.
Thank you for that, Captain. We do have a number of questions. I will say, in planning for this meeting, we did invite representatives from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Unfortunately, they were not able to join. As I mentioned, I have been in touch with them. We encourage neighbors to reach out, as the captain is suggesting. MPD has and will continue to do their job as it relates to arresting individuals that pose harm. We also need the courts to do their job and actually hold people accountable when they are in front of a judge. And again, that is not on the council or the mayor. We need the courts to come to the table there. I'm not trying to point fingers, but it's pretty clear if you look at the prosecution rates that there is a breakdown in our system in terms of who's being picked up on the streets and who's being held accountable in the courts. So with that, Captain, I'm gonna ask Oliver that you highlight some of the questions that we have for 3D.
Okay, so I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
For the first one, is there a public safety strategy for North Capitol's intersection with New York Avenue?
The intersection, right? That's right at the corner. We share that with the first district on the south side. Sam Bonar from your office, he's leading a kind of a trust, a North Capitol Avenue trust. And so I was just in a meeting with him. I think it was 2 days ago about that. So any improvements we could bring, to that area, whether it's traffic related, obviously drug related, any resources, we can get there. would be an added benefit. We do get some kids coming up from Tyler House, which is on the south side of New York Avenue there. But yeah, anything we can get, would help. Of course, the cameras up in the block there in the 1400 block. I know that's like the 1300 block there, but they mostly hang in the 1400 block. But we know they go down to the liquor store. I know the store on the corner of O Street there and North Capitol closed a little bit, because they can't use that to really, go in and out of. But and we do have some folks hanging on the unit block of O right there. But any extra resources, we get, we will use them. But that is part of it, the hotspot. Like I said, I have the officers come back, try to come back to that area every 2 hours or so to handle, any issues there.
And just to elaborate there before we go to our next question, this work is dynamic in terms of the pilot that we're launching along the North Capitol corridor, bringing in businesses, bringing in MPD, bringing in behavioral health, and a host of other partners, community leaders alike. And the goal is to have a whole of government, all hands on deck approach. And so we hear that phrase a lot, whole of government, and we look forward to sharing more about our success along North Capitol. For any neighbor that is interested in learning more, we will highlight our efforts in this Friday's newsletter. And if you have more specific questions, we're happy to have Sam follow up with you. Oliver, back over to you.
Question is, it took MPD over 5 minutes to get to the Bloomingdale Petite Scholars incident. How are we going to speed up that response time?
So me talking about it or actually getting to the scene of the, okay, getting right. Okay. All right. Right. So I watched, body worn camera, video footage of the incident, and the officers were, going lights and sirens as soon as they got the call. So, I don't think it took 5, minutes from when they got the call to when they actually got there. I can look on our database to see the actual time, but Officer Martin was the first officer there. He did a very good job, as the first officer there. And then the sexual assault branch took over. But when it's a code 1 assignment, lights and sirens, they put on the lights and sirens and they're flying there. Sometimes they drive faster than I want them to drive, but the officers, watched several officers go into the scene and they got there, as fast as they could.
And just add here, we know that MPD is facing an attrition crisis, and that is something that the city is actively trying to address, and that it contributes to response time, not excusing it, but just trying to add additional context. I see some of the chats or comments around what will happen if this individual is released back in our community. As has been mentioned, I have requested, and there's confirmation that MPD is already escorting the Petite Scholars children to and from the facility when they do their walks. I expect that to continue. We have also requested increased presence in and throughout Bloomingdale as a result. It is my understanding that this individual also had previously a bench warrant. And so part of what we're also trying to explore is if he cannot be prosecuted for this, is there something else he can be prosecuted? And I just want to make clear that this is a dynamic and active case. I know parents want answers, but we are actively making calls and reaching out. I just want to reiterate that the next step will be whether or not the U.S. Attorney prosecutes and whether or not a judge holds this individual. That is not up for MPD. That is not up to me or anyone else at the council. That is on the courts. And because we don't have statehood, our courts are federally controlled. Oliver, are there other questions?
Yes, I have another question. If Russell will be released and we see him in the future around Bloomingdale, should we call the policy / social services? Or when do we act?
Okay, what's it asking? They should call who?
Should they call policy or social services? What should they do if he
Call
is
the-
released and they see him in the
okay.
future?
Well, if, if he's not committing a crime, we can't really do anything and, unless he has a stay away. Barring notice, from a, particular block or something like that, if he's not committing a crime, we can't really, do anything if he's out free, to walk around. Of course, if his, if his pants are down or if he's doing any kind of, thing that looks like a crime to anybody, please call 911 and we can come out and, check it out and see if, we have a crime in front of us and, we can make an arrest because, we would like to keep arresting him, to make a point to, because, we think he's a danger, to the public. So if, if you think he's, if he makes a threat towards anyone, he often makes a threat a lot of times to females. And so, any kind of threat, please, call us as soon as you can. So, we can come and, take a report or take action, whatever the case may be.
And I would like to make clear the one office that has the authority to issue that stay away order is the U.S. Attorney's Office. We have made that request. The request has been acknowledged by the U.S. Attorney, Matt Graves. He is not willing to discuss the case because he's not allowed to legally. I can also say another Councilmember Henderson, has also made a request for the individual to have a stay away order. And it will be the determination of the U.S. Attorney whether or not that is granted. There was a question earlier around why that request was not broader to the city or Ward 5 or Bloomingdale. It has been explained that it is a very high bar to cross legally to get these stay away orders. And so trying to direct it as specifically as possible to where the crime was caused, which, yes, it is our community. It is believed we would have a better chance of actually getting it by connecting it to the Petite Scholars facility itself and the radius surrounding it. And we will be sure to update the community when we have that information. But again, the only person that can issue that stay away order is the U.S. Attorney. Oliver, are there other questions?
Yes. So you did mention earlier about the stay away order as well as the community impact statements. Could you explain that process and how that happens?
Right. So the stay away order, I think we talked about that. Basically the United States Attorney, they recommend it to a judge, and the judge is the one who actually will like allow it or disallow it. So but as far as the community impact statements, basically anybody can write one letter, everybody sign it, or else you can write individual letters, which I think is probably more impactful when you have more pieces of paper in front of a judge, coming from different citizens. But you could do it either way. Get it to your ANC commissioner, and your ANC commissioner's job is, then, to get it to the United States Attorney's Office, and then United States Attorney's Office can then present it to the judge at the opportune time. I'm not sure if an arraignment, if that's the time that they present them, because arraignments there's hundreds of lockups every morning, so I don't know if that's, but sometime during a preliminary hearing or a trial, they can be, presented as a mitigating factor, and hopefully persuade, the judge, in our favor here.
There was another question about the individual being involuntarily held for mental health treatment. That is what is happening currently. And the district by law has up to 48 hours before the individual is then released back to MPD. And as the captain said, the individual will be then taken to be arraigned. And so we are within that 48-hour window. He will then be released back to MPD afterwards. One of the things, again, that I've requested the Health Committee to revisit and to look at is whether or not we need to lengthen that time, lengthen the flexibility, give more authority to the city and our medical officials to involuntarily hold individuals that may pose a threat to society because of mental illness. That is something that Councilmember Henderson has committed to looking at alongside me and individuals at the Department of Behavioral Health. And we will share more information as we have it in the near future. Oliver, are there other questions?
Yes. So how many officers are on the scene trained in mental health? We will see many more Russells on the street.
Right. So we have a number of officers who are certified. They're called CIO officers, which I think stands for Crisis Intervention Officers. And so they have special, training on how to deal with folks in mental crisis. And as far as the numbers here, the 3rd district, I have to get a list, but it's probably in the dozens. So each shift, there should be, the estimates, should have us at, 2 or 3, working each shift, could be more. So when we do get someone like this, we do like to get them on the scene. Sometimes they're completely preoccupied with something else. They can't leave, but, we try to get them, to the scene, because they have the added training. So, but yeah, the more of those, we have on the department, the better, for sure. And, just our numbers, I just wanted, the council member mentioned our numbers, our staffing in PSA 306, right now on midnights is 6 officers, day work 5, evening 6. Staffing in PSA 308 is 7 on midnights, 6 on day work, and 8 on evenings. And so, there's officers that are out injured sometimes and they're on days off. And so those numbers are much, much smaller each day. So that shows you shows you how few, officers that we're working with citywide here. It's just, this is indicative of the entire, district. Of course, across the country, there's a shortage of, police officers. So, that can obviously affect, response times to all kinds of calls, unfortunately.
Thank you, Captain. Before we switch gears to our 5D commander, how can individuals get in touch with you? I know we have the 3D contact information, but if you would be willing to share if there's contact information for you in the chat, that would be great.
Sure. I'll put
Awesome.
my contact information in there, and I actually have an engagement with the mayor too, probably where it's going to be too. Yes,
we understand everyone's busy. So yeah, feel free to jump. We thank you for joining, and we will follow up with more questions, but thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. All right. Take care.
Next, we're going to go to our 5D commander. The 5th district covers the majority of Ward 5. And I would just say Commander Altieri has been a great partner to our office and has worked tirelessly to address public safety and has served as a model, I think, for MPD of working alongside communities. And I don't say that lightly. I am reminded that while there are some challenges facing our city and MPD, the only way we're going to overcome this period is by working together. And Commander Altieri has demonstrated that. So with that, Commander, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. How are you today? First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Parker and Deputy Mayor, the violence interrupters, everybody who's participating in this call, and most of all the citizens who are calling in to express your concerns or sort of try to learn more about what we're doing. I truly believe the only way with even if it wasn't for the decreasing numbers of MPD and increasing crime, I truly believe the only way you can fix the community and affect it positively is we have to kind of look at every aspect of it. That doesn't mean we have to make things that are so restrictive the police can't work, but at the same time, we have to address underlying issues. And it's good to be in an environment like this. I mean, they always say it takes a village, but it's true. You know, to have DBH involved and to have other groups involved that work with people, that's the way we're going to get to the issue. Because at the end of the day, while the police can arrest people, and which is often necessary, you really can't arrest your way out of societal problems. I mean, we have to look at the drivers of what's going on, the addiction, the abuse, the trauma suffering, you know, the people that are basically growing up in environments that are so violent and they're seeing so much that they become numb to it. So while we are here to do our job, when that unfortunately happens and maybe people go out and act out and do what they shouldn't do and harm others, at the same time, it's good to know that we're trying to take more of, I guess, holistic approach to this. So thank you. And also my cell phone number is 202-440-2698. It's 202-440-2698. I'm sure Oliver will put my chat in the, my email in the chat. I have an odd name. It's Italian. I probably won't be able to spell it properly over this conversation. I'm sure that'll be 90% of the questions is, what was his first name? So Oliver, I guess, can take care of that. So I'm the commander for the 5th District. I came here last year as an inspector. Chief Conti brought me over from Ward 7, where I spent the last 4 years, 3 as a captain and then 1 as an inspector running the substation. He brought me over to help Ralph McLean with an increase in some issues we were having, primarily violent crime issues in this area. Ralph retired in December. I was promoted in January. We had a pretty good first part of the year. It all kind of changed in summer, what with the robberies that I'm sure you're all aware of that were occurring citywide. I don't want to beat a dead horse with that. I think the other commanders already talked about it, but part of the issue with the robberies is really the fact that it was sort of a new thing. You know, robberies became an issue because people were stealing vehicles and really committing these robberies in neighborhoods that were traditionally not affected by them. And they were realizing, hey, I can steal a car. I can drive around these more, not suburban neighborhoods, but neighborhoods that, you know, maybe have single family homes, maybe have quieter streets, maybe are less congested than, say, going to the club zone areas or downtown and trying to rob someone coming out of a concert. And they really realized they could do that. And it was a challenge for us as an agency because it's something we never saw on this scale. And really trying to figure out, wow, how am I going to combat this? Because I don't know if these folks are going to be in Brookland tonight. I don't know if they're going to be in Fort Lincoln. I don't know if they're going to be in Carver, Trinidad. How do I figure this out? And in July, when it was getting really bad, and I have a slide about it we'll talk about, but the city put together a robbery suppression initiative. I want to bring it up now so I don't forget to talk about it. I know Councilmember Parker mentioned it. And what this is sort of a collaborative effort on the part of MPD. Normally, traditionally, MPD, you work with other units like the violent crime suppression division or something like that to have them come in because they specialize in something. But it was really more of a matter of how are we trying to deal with everything that's happening at one time. So what they did is they put this robbery suppression initiative together. They looked at the busiest days of the week. Those are Thursday through Sunday, and the busiest hours of crime were the evening into midnight tours. And that's for violent crime specifically. So what they did is they created this thing, VC, Violent Crime Suppression Division, our robbery unit, our auto theft units, all these specialized units that really go out and look for people who are drivers of gun violence, drivers of violent crime. And they also pull people from each district. And they focused and really sort of drilled down on areas that had the most violent crime, where were the most homicides, where were the most robberies. And that's kind of what they went with. So that started this summer and it really drove our numbers down. I'll talk about it in the next slide, but you can stay here for right now, Oliver, if you don't mind. The other thing I want to throw out before I forget is the deputy mayor mentioned this before she got off. So yes, I am doing a lot with narcotics in the neighborhoods. Now, let me say this, as someone who has a relative, my brother, who's a recovering addict, I understand the illness of addiction. And I'm don't think that needs to be criminalized, but people that are selling drugs in the neighborhood bringing guns in the neighborhood to keep territory, and committing violent acts to hold that territory are endangering not just the addicts, who are people too, but they're endangering the citizens. That's what most of our sounds of gunshots are from. That's what a lot of it is drug related. Some of it is internal beefs and community beefs, sure, but a lot of it is like business. So we are really working on that. Part of the challenges we have is how do we do that with uniformed patrol officers? Because, you know, a citizen will call, and very rarely so, say, look, every time the police aren't here, there's a guy in front of my house, I know he's selling drugs. I'm 100% sure. And, 90% of the time or more, the citizens are right. That's what's happening. We show up, they just stop. We wait for us to go away, they start. So how do you stop that problem? It's one thing to just sit there and have it tamped down when an officer's there, but how do you stop it? How do you try to cure that problem? And the way to do it is by getting distribution drug arrest. Now, what we've been doing here, because in uniform, it's very challenging. We can't go up and buy drugs in uniform. Most people won't sell to us in uniform. But what we've been doing is we've been working with businesses, we've worked with community members. Some people have given us access to exterior cameras. Some people have given us access to their businesses and homes where we actually sit and watch this activity and make arrests that way. If anyone's interested in that, that's in Ward 5 in the 5th district, I can only speak for my district here, please reach out to me privately. Don't reach out to me in this call. Send me an email or call me. I will put you in touch with our crime suppression team, and they will explain the legalities of it and how it works. Because obviously, some people don't want to do it, but what the deputy mayor was referring to is this very thing, because we started this with some complaints she had from neighbors, and they actually had us in their homes doing this, and we've had pretty good amount of success in those areas. We are doing this throughout the 5th district. We are in very expensive palatial homes. We are in abandoned buildings. It just depends on who wants to give us access and how comfortable they feel. So that's just an option we are doing here. Another thing we did here was we expanded our crime suppression team, which has led to last year at this time, our crime suppression team has gotten 76 guns. Right now, they've gotten 139. So the expansion of that has helped. And crime suppression, and I know the other two commanders referred to it, but I just want to let you all kind of know what it is. It's a unit that is specially trained in Fourth Amendment issues and Fourth Amendment rights, so we're not violating anyone's rights, and also in gun interdiction, recognizing if someone might be having a gun, and also in narcotics interdiction, sort of recognizing patterns you look for, activities you look for to try to see if there's any sort of drug activity. Now, the challenge is, how do we do this with what we have? Because if you look at the 5th district, and those of you who live here know, we have drug sales in a lot of different places. We have gun violence in a lot of different places. So the way we have to address it, because of staffing, is basically we rotate that unit through different areas. I can't leave them at Trinidad forever. I can't leave them on 21st Street forever. I can't leave them down at AZ Base forever, but I can rotate them around, or Starburst Plaza, any of these areas, but I can rotate them through. I know it's kind of a trite saying, but they talk about how you eat an elephant one bite at a time. It's kind of what we're having to do right now based on our staffing. So that's some stuff we are doing here. And also somebody asked about auto theft. So the city does have an auto theft unit. It's made up of, there's a detective from CID that runs it. They are pretty good at getting a lot of the cars back. Prevention wise, it's hard. You can do everything, like the person who talked about having 2 cars stolen. You can do everything possible, everything right, and someone can still take a car or break into your home, or you can still become a victim. There are mostly, though, in most cases, it will help deter it. It really depends on the motivation and how much wherewithal the person trying to commit the crime has. So let me talk about my crime real quick. And Commissioner, you got to cut me off at some point because I'll keep talking. So I don't want to do that to you guys. So the last 30 days have been rough. Our homicides are even, our ADWs are up, our self-dangerous weapons in the last 30 days. We have right now conflicts going on between multiple neighborhoods. And it is a challenge because we put units over there, they patrol, we have overtime units. The department is really trying because of staffing. I'll give you an example. I have 28 officers working tonight. Wednesday is the usually traditionally busiest day we have as far as personnel, because our days off, most people's days off don't fall on Wednesday. So normally Wednesday, 3 years ago, would have over 30 people. Now we're working with 28. So it makes it difficult, but we're really focusing on those areas. What we do is we use intelligence-led policing. We look at how many calls for service are in an area for violent crime. We look at how many guns have been recovered. We look at sounds of gunshots as well as shootings. It's really important to look at both of those things. If you just look at an area where somebody's shot, that's tragic. I agree. But if you have an area where you have one shooting and another area where there's 10 sounds of gunshots, that kind of just means the people shooting might just not be hitting something. And both of those are something that still needs to be addressed. So what we do is we really focus on those areas, and we've basically broken down into 4 deployment zones. And those zones are areas where we know we have a high amount of violence or crew conflict. We check that information. I like to do it every 2 weeks, because if you do it every week, you sort of get in this habit of what's called chasing crime, where you're just kind of here for a little bit, then you're running here. You really have to wait for it to develop to see what's happening. 2 weeks is a pretty good period. That's what we're doing right now. So our CST guys go out, they're doing what they're doing. Our patrol folks go out. Each PSA has patrol officers. Generally, it's 8 to 9 per PSA. Now, that doesn't count days off. That doesn't count people getting sick, people getting hurt. And really what's happening now is people kind of getting burned out and taking more leave or taking more sick leave, because really, to be completely honest, in order to keep our staffing, a minimum staffing level, each tour, a lot of times we're holding people over. So you have people that are coming to work, they're supposed to work a 10-hour tour, they never work an 18-hour tour. It's happening many days in a row. So it's a challenge. Now, I will say this, the council is great. They're really pushing for us to get more employees. They have the signing bonuses. They've really stepped up trying to rectify this. Part of the problem with it is, though, it's hard to recruit what you lose. And every other, we're competing with other districts, other cities. So someone might not want to come to DC. They might say, oh, well, if I go to DC, the crime's pretty high. Because believe it or not, a lot of people don't want to be cops, don't like dealing with crime. They kind of want to have the gun and the badge, and but do they really want to do the work, right? So they might say, oh, I could go here, or I could go to Montgomery County and get a take-home car and still get a most. So there's a lot of stuff going on like that. So we're really trying to retain our officers. I do a lot of stuff here. I have a mindfulness person come in. We have a yoga person come in from when officers are off duty. That's by me. That's not by the agency, but I'm trying to find ways that people are using to engage employees and keep them here and keep them focused.
I just want to be mindful of time.
Sorry. Okay, go to the next slide. I apologize.
So we could get to the questions.
Oh, okay. Sure. I just wanted to point out one thing. So with our robberies before the robbery suppression initiative, which the council member talked about, our robberies between July and August were 146% increase. 146%. That wasn't even the largest increase in the city, but that's how bad the robberies were this summer. With the robbery suppression unit, with some other deployments, we were able to drive that number down at 66% right now. I don't like it. I think one's too many, but we are making progress. And you see the gun recoveries there. And the next slide is just community outreach, which we do constantly here. We do it daily, but please, I'm happy to answer any questions, and just give me the hook, council member, when you need to.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Oliver to lift up some questions. And there's one that I will speak to from a community member as well.
Sure.
We had a question in response to the alert DC. Why didn't the alert go out to the residents about this incident that happened at Petite Scholars? And
well, that's a really good question. That's a good question. I'm sorry. So Alert DC, we don't manage that. It's actually HZEMA. If that person would like, or Oliver, if you want to if someone could email me their information, I'll reach out to HZEMA. While it's nothing I can speak on, because I don't know how or why it didn't go out, I will try to get you a point of contact to get that answer for you.
Awesome.
Another question is, do you think that the impending redevelopment of Brooklyn Manor causes some unease/unrest in the area? The development has just been on pause for years, but people know they're going to lose their homes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I honestly, I think, if we're honest with ourselves as people, I think what people sort of fear and, worry about most is change. Even if it's a positive change, they worry about change. And with Brooklyn Manor right now, yes, I'm sure there are plenty of people up there who are concerned about, it's interesting. My ex-wife's grandmother lived in Brooklyn Manor up until she passed away probably about 8 years ago. So and plus working here, I'm familiar with it. But, that's someone's home. So I'm sure people are very stressed out about it, and I'm sure it is causing a lot of concern for the citizens up there. Plus, with the delay, you don't know, when is it going to start? When's it going to stop? So it's definitely something that I'm sure people are concerned about. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that communities can do to assist police or things that we can advocate for that would help with recruiting for additional officers?
Ooh, that's a great question. First of all, really the best thing you all can do, it's kind of like what Councilmember Parker is doing with Sam down on North Capitol. And also we have some Councilmember Guzman who's on here, Councilmember Payne, or trying to get together with other, ANC commissioners who are trying to get together with other ANC commissioners to really work together on these task force. The biggest thing is communication. And a lot of that boils down to, if you guys see something, letting us know. I know see something, say something, it's an overused phrase. That's a good thing. But also just by having these meetings so people can understand, hey, I have this issue, and you might think it's the police. We abandoned car. I'll give you an example. We don't tow abandoned cars. That's not us. Okay. We can ticket it, but we can't tow it. So people get frustrated and they get upset and they get mad. I get it. I deal with it every day, but they kind of learn by coming to these things. Hey, who does that? And I think that's helpful too. So really communication is the key. The camera rebate program is a great program. I can't recommend it strongly enough. I think that helps a lot. And really information sharing. So if you see something and it's not an emergency, but if you want to call us, you can text 50411, which is a text number, or you can call 202-727-9099. You can be completely anonymous. That's really good if you see something like, say, a lot of drug activity. Maybe you see someone putting a handgun in their car. You don't want to call 911 and kind of endanger yourself by having the police show up at your home, but you can give us a good lookout and say what that is. And that's a good way to get us dispatched down there to handle that. I think that's really the best thing, is just really trying to work together and understand each other and have open, sometimes painful, honest dialogue with one another about what we can do to make change.
Commander, can you provide that number again?
Oh, yes, sir. So the first one, and I know Councilor, you've heard this, council member, you heard my joke, but I didn't realize this. Some kid explained it to me at a meeting. So the text number is 50411, like given the 50, the 411. I'd never thought of that, but it was pretty interesting. That's the text. The phone number is 202-727-9099. And again, the only way you're going to be identified by those calls don't get subpoenaed in court as far as pulling the witness in or anything like that. The only way you're going to be identified in those calls is if you tell us, hey, this is Councilmember Zachary Parker texting you. If you just text, that's it. All we know is what you're telling us.
Thank you for that. There are more questions. I saw Commissioner Dale lift up, how can we get in front of some of what is happening in Fort Lincoln? I know there's been a request for the robbery suppression unit in the Fort Lincoln community. If you could just speak to that process
Sure.
quickly.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, sir, quickly. I'm sorry. So it's passion, though. It's passion. So here's the thing. With the robbery suppression unit, that's based on the number of, like I talked about earlier, it's based on the number of violent crimes. While Fort Lincoln has stuff going on and we're trying to redeploy up there to deal with these crimes, just because they're carjackings and robberies that are occurring based off of this new trend with the vehicle thefts and the people using the vehicles. Really, the robbery suppression unit, they pull the stats and say, okay, where's the most robberies happening? Where are the most homicides happening? Where are the most shootings? And that's kind of where they focus down on. Now, what happens though, Commissioner Deal, which is good, is that enables us to pull out of that area and go focus somewhere else. For instance, when we were in Brookland, because Brookland led the city in robberies for a few months, what we were able to do when they went into Brookland, we could pull out and go over to Fort Lincoln and hit some of our other spots. So that's kind of how we're trying to do it. It's moving a lot of stuff around to try to touch and lay hands on every place as best as we can.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There have been kudos in the chat for your presentation, Commander. I appreciate your continued partnership. I know we are coming down to time. I did want to lift up one question, which was about the mayor's new proposed bill. In short, I have not seen the language of the bill. I am awaiting the release of that information, and I will share more at that time. I would also, there was a question about what are we doing in the budget to increase resources for the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or the ONE's office, the OAG programs, or the Office of the Attorney General's programs like the violence interruption programs like Cure the Streets. and other non-policing punitive approaches to crime and violence prevention. It is worth noting that we currently do not have a director for the gun prevention office here in the district. We do not have a director for the WANS office. I continue to call on my executive colleagues to fill those positions and work expeditiously to come up with those comprehensive plans. I will continue to advocate for violence interruption programs as I believe they work. They work hand in hand with the rest of our public safety apparatus, which is why we have those violence interrupters on this call. I'm going to switch gears. I believe Cody Wynn of Cure the Streets is up next. And I would just say, Cure the Streets within the Trinidad and Ivy City area has posted some very tangible wins. Often it is questioned whether or not violence prevention works, and Cody Wynn and the Cure the Streets team is showing that it does in fact work. So with that, Cody, I'm going to ask you to just give us a brief, a 1 to 2 minute update about where you work and what are some of the services you provide in your area. And then we're going to turn it over to our other violence interruption program.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Councilmember Parker, for having me, and also Deputy Mayor for having me on this call. So I am Cody Wynn. I'm the site supervisor for the NOC Cure the Streets program. That is in Ward 5, which is the Trinidad and the 18th Amendment area. So we cover the outer bound areas of Trinidad, of West Virginia Avenue going into Bladensburg Avenue, which is Bladensburg Avenue going into Mount Olivet, and then going also to West Virginia. So also the Cure the Streets team is a team of 10 individuals with outreach, 2 outreach workers, 6 violent interrupters, and a site supervisor. So within that Trinidad area, Trinidad have a lot of streets, but we know the hot spots because we from that community. So we put the day-to-day for the violent interrupters is basically to do 8 hours covering that whole Trinidad sector, but mainly do that time in the target areas that we know just high on crime, high on drugs, use and everything like that. So we deployed the violent interrupters there. Our system for Cure the Streets is database driven. So every day, day-to-day, they put what they do into the system. I can say for last year, the FY23, we had like 186 participants where we got jobs, programming, schooling, and also things like that. Also, some of the success stories, like I said, we work hand in hand with other organizations, which is William Shelton, that's going to be with y'all the next after me. And also, like Lindsay said, we partner with Safe Passage programs, and also we do Safe Passage inside of our schools within our community. I can say the resources that we do have, that we give them are job opportunities. We also programming. We try to help them with housing. Our thing is this, our purpose is basically gun violence, stopping gun violence. And if you take that gun out of that individual hand, you got to replace it with something. So us changing the norms, dealing with high-risk individuals in our community, that's basically what we do. Like I say, my team wakes up every day to try to stop the violence in our community. And also, how can we change the norm and get other community individuals involved? We got a shooting response tomorrow on the 1200 block of Mount Olivet for a recent shooting that happened. We also got Halloween drive where we would have violent interrupters on every corner to keep the kids safe while trick-or-treating. Partner with the mayor's office with the GO team that'll be in our target area, and also Safe Passage workers. And we also got the turkey drive we do on Montello Avenue every year, but we do partner with Councilmember Parker and his agency. The ANC commissions, the ANC Salvador is a big help to our organization. We partner with them a lot. And we also partner with DPR that give us resources and everything for our community and things like that. So only thing we asking for is more partnership with people in the community, which we get a lot. And that will definitely make this program actually work. I can say all the commanders was on and they was basically talking about crime and things like that. But, a lot of our Cure sites, we had a decrease in crime, a lot of them. which is a good thing. So we just keeping up the work, and definitely we want y'all support. Also, I am on here for Trinidad at 18 p.m., but we do got a Curtis Street site in the Truxton, the Equaton area. That's the office is right in North Capitol. And they do the same thing I do in my community, they do in their community. So that's why I'm here. It's definitely a passion to keep these communities safe and things like that. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cody. There is one question from our Brooklyn Village community. How can they get in touch with you?
I will put my number in the chat so everyone can have my number. I'll put my number and email in the chat.
I appreciate that. I do want to, before we close, turn to William Shelton. I would just say a concrete example of the impactful work that Cody leads, and I won't name the school, but they intercepted what could have ended up being a very deadly incident because of their work on the ground, trying to disrupt cycles of violence and working and coordinating with the school community. They were able to give a heads up to the school community that there was a very real threat directed towards one of that school community's students, and they were able to avert that. So when you ask, do violence prevention efforts work? Yes, they do, and we have concrete examples to point to. Thank you, Cody. There are going to be some comments in the chat that I would encourage you to take a look at. Also, if you have questions or want us to help you connect with Cody and the Curtis Street team, we're happy to do that. William Shelton, if you can speak to the work that your team is leading very quickly, we will then close the call.
Good afternoon, council member. I just wanted to let everyone know I'm on behalf of my organization, which is the Ward 5 Violence Prevention Network. We are the other violence intervention and prevention organization in Ward 5. We are contractors to the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement in the Ward 5 community. Our communities, like Cody, we work directly with CURE in terms of our support. We have pretty much a majority of the other communities in Ward 5. We have the Brentwood community, which is Saratoga, Montana. Saratoga is also is really Brooklyn Manor. We have the Edgewood community, we have the Langdon Park community, and we have Carver Terrace, Langston Terrace, Taft and Woodridge, and we also have a part of Ward 2, which is the Shaw community. We pretty much have 2 intervention specialists per community, with the exception of our smaller communities, which is Taft and Woodridge and Langdon Park. Each of these individuals is uniquely qualified because these individuals who are many of them born and raised in that community and spent significant times in that community and really understand kind of what's going on in that community. One of the things that Cody would probably agree, and the councilman will also share, as intervention specialists, we are not police officers. We are frontline providers in that community who deal directly with individuals who we know really need some support to keep them and deter them from committing acts of crime. We have about 90 individuals that we served last year with about 150 families who we directly reached out to and worked with. One of the key things that we really tout ourselves on is we really pretty much say about 80% of the people who are in our program and participated with us achieved some kind of a significant outcome, whether or not it was getting a job, returning back to school, whether or not it was sending them back to helping them to get IDs, in a lot of instances, getting individuals to have working cell phones. So when we know they might be doing something wrong, we have the ability to reach out to them to try to figure out what's going on with them in particular. One of the key landmarks and benchmarks, I think, in terms of our success is when we started about a year ago, one of the 2 communities that we work particularly well with are 2 rival communities, which is the Edgewood and the Saratoga community. When we started, at the time that we started, those 2 communities, I think at the time we started, had about 10 fatalities between the 2 communities. 14 months later, the 4 individuals who are the specialists in those communities really have led an effort to 14 months later, those communities have not had one single act of, one single fatality or one single shooting that has been attributed to the Saratoga or the Edgewood community, kind of rival communities. I think I'll end with this particular thing just to let everyone know, the individuals who we work particularly with, to give you an example, we're big believers and strong believers, and I think Cody would agree with me, is if you put young people to work, they do not commit crimes. And, one of the key things that we've successfully done is we put about 13 people to work at the Department of Public Works. And a year later, 9 of them have been permanently hired. And just to give you an example, one of the individuals who's from one of the communities just happened to be somebody that in his childhood was wreaking havoc on the community. Now, 1 year later, with him being hired with the Department of Public Works, he has moved out of that community, moved into his own apartment, and is now taking responsibility, taking his children and doing something positive. So, if the question is, does violence intervention services work? The answer is yes. Every particular area that we have specialists in, we average about 120 days or more where there is not really any incidents that are going on in that community. And if there are incidents that happen in that community, you hardly ever hear any retaliations that come behind that, because those are the type of things that our specialists generally get an opportunity to get ahead of. So I will also put my information in the chat to be able to reach out to me in particular. I will make sure that Oliver has the ability, and the council member, each of our specialists has a cell phone and an email address that is for the public to be able to access to them. So I'll make sure to get that list to Oliver as well. So, if you're from a particular community and you see something, or you feel like you need some support from one of the specialists, they're available for you to reach out to them by phone call or email at any time, or to reach out to me or the supervisors that we have on our team at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. I want to thank you and your entire team for all the work that you do. Just to close, if you could share your contact in the chat so people can get in touch. You can also, for neighbors, you can also reach out to our office, and we're happy to connect you with any of these individuals or their respective offices. I want to come back to what is the point of today's conversation, as well as the conversations we will have hereafter monthly. And it is to coordinate and share as much information as possible. Today was pretty high level. There were some very specific incidents that were discussed, given how recent they occurred. Over time, we imagine we will dive more deeply into community-based issues, crime events, et cetera. We will also invite different parties, council colleagues, different agencies. We hope the U.S. Attorney's Office will come join us, all in an effort to better coordinate and educate the public around the work that is being done to keep you safe. If you have questions or concerns, please reach out to my office. My contact is on the screen. We have also dropped it in the chat. If you want to learn more, please sign up for our weekly newsletter. Every Friday, we share a wealth of information around the work that we're doing, as well as the work happening across the government to meet residents' basic needs and keep you safe. The goal of this is to address the rise in violence that we're seeing across the city. This is not the beginning, it's not the end. It is just yet one more tool that we are leveraging to reach the public. And so with that, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to answering any questions we were not able to get to on today's call. We will share that information in our weekly newsletter. So again, sign up if you are not already receiving it. If you have signed up and you're not receiving it, check your spam. We hear from a lot of neighbors that the newsletter goes to their spam box. But overall, I want to thank you for tuning in and know that we are working around the clock to address the very real issues our communities are facing. Thank you.